We said a few things as we got started in our class that we haven't talked about in several weeks. What is the nature of Proverbs? Remember any of those key words that we use? Let's get at least two of them. Good. General in nature. Very good. What's another one? Observational. Do you remember that one? That most of these or many of these principles can be found just by opening your eyes and looking around at life. What did Webb and Julia said the word general, what do we mean by that? Good. These aren't specific promises or laws that are given. They are in general true, but not always true. If you raise up your child in the way of the Lord, then when he is older, he will not depart from it. That is true most of the time. There are exceptions to that rule. And so you're going to see that same sort of thing come to pass as we read these Proverbs tonight. All right, let's get started. Proverbs on industriousness. Hard work is a virtue. And Solomon says that generally speaking, it leads to prosperity. Opening your eyes and looking around. Or at the very least, it leads to having food on the table. And that's good. We understand, because we've talked about it so many times, the relationship of a Christian to money. We are not seeking to get rich. At the same time, in balance with that, is the understanding that hard work is rewarded. If you want to have food on the table, you've got to work hard in order to get it. So Proverbs 10, verses 4 through 5, poor is he who works with a negligent hand, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. He who gathers in summer is a son who acts wisely, but he who sleeps in harvest is a son who acts shamefully. So again, don't go crazy because you got the word rich there. I thought we weren't supposed to be rich. What he's saying is, if you work hard and you take care of your fields and the things that have been entrusted to you, then you will have plenty to share with your family and others as well. Proverbs 20 and verse 13, do not love sleep lest you become poor. Open your eyes and you will be satisfied with food. What happens when you sleep late? Or is there another proverb we Americans like? That's right. The early bird gets the worm. That's exactly right. What time did you get up this morning, Jerry? 4:30 a.m.? Woo. Okay. Proverbs. Huh? Well, okay. That's. I don't go to bed at 11. So, Proverbs 12 and verse 11. He who tills his land will have plenty of bread, but he who pursues vain things lacks sense. I think this is a great proverb to kind of advance into modern life. What are some vain things today that keep people from getting ahead? Good, that's true. The constant distraction of social media and phones and everything else. It's so funny, Chrissy and I will have this conversation from time to time about the probably shouldn't share this information, but the number of teachers who will sneak to the back of the classroom and be playing around on their phone during the time that they're supposed to be instructing their students. That's something that they can sort of get away with every once in a while, but not so much in most lines of work. What's another thing? Yes, Brian.
When I was a young man, I tried selling knives. I tried various little get-rich-quick type schemes. I forget if I can apply to that too.
Good.
Sometimes there's things out there that are shiny that they try to suck you in and get you to do those things that could sell you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. Good, that's a good point. I like that. So get-rich-quick schemes can be a waste of time and vain things themselves. Good. Anybody else? All right, let's go down to the next one. The sluggard buries his hand in the dish, but will not even bring it back to his mouth. That's kind of a hilarious, obviously an over-exaggerated image on purpose of somebody who's so lazy that they reach in to, not even going to do that. Not even going to bring my hand to my mouth. It's not so crazy, though, to think of somebody saying, I need to make some dinner. I don't want to make dinner. I'll go get McDonald's again, or whatever it is, just putting forth no effort whatsoever. By the way, it's okay for you to go to McDonald's, just using an illustration. To be spoon-fed. Yes, indeed. The culture of, the word just went, entitlement, thank you. The culture of entitlement is something we deal with. The next one, the desire of the sluggard puts him to death, for his hands refuse to work. All day long he is craving, while the righteous gives and does not hold back. Once again, the idea that working hard isn't just to give you a leg up on everybody else, but to be in a position to be able to help other people who have needs. That is something you'll find all throughout Scripture, including book of Ephesians, for example. Work with your hands so that you will have something to share with those who have need. And then here's one of those long ones. Very rare that we get one of the long ones, but we've got one here. I passed by the field of the sluggard. There's our observational quality of the Proverbs. Solomon says, I was walking down the road, and this is what I saw, and this is what I concluded. I passed by the field of the sluggard and by the vineyard of the man lacking sense. And behold, it was completely overgrown with thistles. Its surface was covered with nettles, and its stone wall was broken down. When I saw, I reflected on it. I looked and received instruction. And here's the instruction. A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and your poverty comes as a robber, and your want like an armed man. How would a farmer be in a position to especially appreciate that observation? How long does it take for things? All right, let's not talk about farmers because few of us are farmers, but most of us have had the experience of gardening, right? If you don't weed your garden one day, what's going to happen tomorrow? Well, the answer I was looking for was nothing. But if you don't weed your garden maybe 2 days, maybe 3 days, those weeds are still tiny, but all of a sudden that's when it's easy to get them. And all of a sudden one day you neglect it long enough and you turn around and you've got a garden full of weeds. Right. So the idea is the constant diligence that makes sure that, we don't have to apply this just to crops, right? Those of you who are in school, if you don't do your homework tonight, what's going to be the consequence? You might get a slap on the wrist tomorrow, whatever. It might not even be due tomorrow. But if you don't do your homework 3 or 4 nights in a row, all of a sudden you're staring at a pile of homework that now looks insurmountable. And it's just keep doing it as it comes up, a little each day, and stay ahead of it, stay on top of it, and it's not an issue. You keep pushing it off, and then all of a sudden you've got massive problems. I think that's what the proverb is trying to illustrate. Yes, Brian.
You kind of see this just in our yard. This is the field. You've got one dandelion. If you don't pull that one dandelion in about 10 days, it gets a bunch of seeds, and the wind blows them across your yard, then you've got 40 dandelions. Those 40 dandelions, 10 more days, that's how it works. And so your fields are that way too. The longer you let it sit, the more work you made for yourself to get it back to what you used to be.
Right.
The same goes with math homework. But if you get behind in math, you will never catch up.
Right.
By the end of the year, you're going to fail your test and you can't catch up with that.
Right.
That happened to me in high school.
Yeah, I really think that's a great illustration that helps us get our mind around that. If you just stay on top of things, then it's okay. But if you let things get behind, if you procrastinate too long, why are you smiling? Then, oh, a paper due Friday. Yeah. Sorry. It is what it is. It'll pay off one day. But if you stay on top of things, everything's going to be great. If you get behind, if you procrastinate, now you're staring at a mountain of insurmountable work. And then you don't want to do it at all. And then the proverb writer walks past your garden and says, I know what happened here. So All right, the next one, Proverbs 26:13. The sluggard says, "There's a lion in the road. There's a lion in the open square." Well, stop and think about it. What's going on there? Exactly. Is there a lion in the open square? There's not. What is he doing? Making excuses, fears about things that might materialize 0.00001% of the time, but do not hinder you from actually accomplishing what needs to be accomplished. And if you start making those little excuses, you can make any excuse. Oh, it's raining. I can't go to school today. Oh, I have a little sniffle. I can't do my homework. Or whatever it is. If you make these little excuses, then that's another way to get behind in life. So don't make excuses. The next part of the proverb, I love the image here. As the door turns on its hinges, so does the sluggard on his bed. Now, all of us have been in a situation where we just want to stay in bed, such as when we turned our clocks forward this past Saturday night and Sunday morning came along. It's like, no, I don't want to get up. I'm going to roll over to this side. No, I don't want to get up. Roll over to that side. So you get the image of the door flopping back and forth, and that's the image of the sluggard staying in bed. You do it one morning, and that's fine. That's just sleeping in. You make it a habit, and now you become what the proverb writer describes as the sluggard. All right, Proverbs 20 and verse 4, the sluggard does not plow after the autumn, and so he begs during the harvest and has nothing. Farmers especially understood this. If you want to eat in October through May, what do you have to do in March through June? Plant, work hard, get that crop in, take care of it, because it takes time for it to produce. If you don't do the work in the spring, there's not going to be anything to eat in the fall. Right. Right. That's exactly right.
This is the reason also that the ant uses instinctively what he does. He instinctively works whenever the bad time comes. He eats. That's just taking a very tiny and we learn by imagery, by observation.
Mm-hmm.
He uses that. So like it calls what it doesn't like to do that a slugger.
Right. Yeah. Very good. One more, Proverbs 16:26. This is a great proverb, even for our American society. A worker's appetite works for him, for his hunger urges him on. The reason that's such a good proverb is what is often required to motivate the sluggard? If you keep taking care of his problems for him, what did you say, Robin? Hunger. You got to feel the little pain in the belly to say, man, I better get out there and do something or else I'm going to go hungry. There has to be incentive. And if we as parents or we as whomever that we have influence over constantly fix the problem, then there's never any incentive to do any better for oneself. So hunger is a motivator, or whatever we're talking about. Feeling the consequences of our omissions or our sins is that motivating factor in getting us to change. What in the story of the prodigal son in Luke chapter 15, what had to happen before he changed? He had to experience hunger. He had to sleep with the hogs before he decided, I'm going back home to my father's house. So I want to, and I'll get Brian here in just a second, I want to be very careful about how I approach this. And I, in fact, have asked you a question underneath this, especially about this proverb, but really all of them. What do they say about public assistance? Before we dive in on that and say some things that we perhaps shouldn't say, look at what the New Testament says in 2 Thessalonians chapter 3. And I think this is a great passage to find the balance. 2 Thessalonians chapter 3 is Paul dealing with an element in the church in Thessalonica that were not working. They were what Solomon describes as sluggards. And look what he says. This is 2 Thessalonians 3, verse 6. Just so you know, this is a New Testament thing too, not just a proverbial thing. We command you, brethren, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that you keep away from every brother who leads an unruly life, and not according to the tradition which you received from us. For you yourselves know how you ought to follow our example, because we did not act in an undisciplined manner among you, nor did we eat anyone's bread without paying for it, but with labor and hardship we kept working night and day, so that we would not be a burden to any of you. Not because we do not have the right to this, but in order to offer ourselves as a model for you, so that you would follow our example. For even when we were with you, we used to give you this order: if anyone is not willing to work, then he is not to eat either. For we hear that some among you are leading an undisciplined life, doing no work at all, but acting like busybodies, which is such a funny word because it means the opposite of what it sounds like. Now such persons we command and exhort in the Lord Jesus Christ to work in quiet fashion and eat their own bread. But as for you, brethren, do not grow weary of doing good. All right, you see where the balance is? There's both sides of the coin reflected in 2 Thessalonians 3. For those who are able-bodied, what does the ethic need to be? Work hard, take care of your family, support yourself, have an abundance to share with those who have need. Does that mean that every single person that applies to them? Are there not also some real needs that have to be cared for as well? Yes. So don't let that individual who is leading an undisciplined life and just trying to mooch off of other people, don't allow that to embitter us to never helping anyone. There are definitely needs that need to be seen to in our congregation and in the community around us. And for those needs, we need to not grow weary of doing good. So the wisdom is in being able to tell the difference between those who are truly in need, those who are not. All right, so with that in mind, think about the question that I asked, and let me get Julia and then Brian. Mm-hmm. Right. 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 When the next hurricane comes through our way. Right. Absolutely. That's a great point. Or in 2 Corinthians 9, it says so that their abundance can fulfill your need, when the tables are turned. So, Brian.
I just had a conversation the other day with someone about the athletes that we see in America. A lot of the athletes now are starting to come from other countries or from really poor backgrounds because the young kids that come from affluent families don't really have that drive to become an athlete anymore. They put all the hard work in, to try to make it as a professional baseball player, whatever. A lot of those players now are coming from other places.
I'd never heard that before. That's interesting.
I mean, in general, but if you look, you see a lot of kids now from other countries that are coming to our colleges and playing, or they come from a really poor background.
Because they have the drive.
Yeah,
Interesting.
they get that empty stomach. Even
Dottie.
Just talking about the health department,
Mm-hmm.
we had a lot of parents or adults that could have been working. I'm not saying that they couldn't, but they should have been, but then you've got the children.
True.
And we were torn, we were going to let the kids go home, even though it was parents' fault,
Right.
You can't turn your back on the babies, and it was a big deliverance.
Right. And that's especially frustrating because I'll tell you, there's one rule that we've seen over and over again, which is that nobody has a greater incentive to care for their children than parents. And it's just a really low-down, rotten thing to not care for one's own and expect somebody else to do that. And a lot of times that is what happens. In fact, if you look at 1 Timothy 5 and verse 8, 1 Timothy 5 and verse 8 actually deals with that situation. 1 Timothy 5 and verse 8, if anyone does not provide for his own, and especially for those of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Whoa, those are pretty stern words. But it demonstrates that care of one's own family is absolutely a Christian principle. But beyond that, the incentive to raise your family will never be stronger than the parents over their own children. And it's really hard to try to replace that. And second generation, third generation, it just ends up becoming a downward spiral. Yep. So I didn't expect you to, set public policy by asking this question right here, but it is something that we wrestle with. How do we identify those needs which are true needs that we need to not grow weary of helping? And then when do we say, oh, you need to get a job? So that's the thing. Any comments or questions about that? Yes. Oh, well. All right. I sort of vaguely remember that. Yeah.
People do come around and beg, and what we did, we had a policy, we would not give anybody any money, we would take them and buy food or go pay their electric bill. And what happened, we had just real quick, we had a person that was asking for help, so we went around Cumberland, walked in, had a big TV back then, it was the new big TV.
Mm-hmm.
And they had sodas playing around all over the place. And I asked them, well, what's this? Well, so we help them. And we came to find out that her brother lived up in Tennessee and said, well, you go to, he was the contractor. And so go down to the church with him.
Yeah.
So what we did, we found some, next week, some of us, we took couple bags of groceries over there, and then,
Right.
So we never.
Right. Well,
They wanted money, and they wanted, I don't know what they were spending on, but.
yeah. And that is the trick now, again, is to not grow weary of doing good when you encounter a few situations like that, because you will encounter a lot of those if you put yourself out there to help, sadly. Okay, keep going. Hard work is appreciated and is often rewarded. And again, what we're not talking about here is just, rising to the top, getting promotion after promotion, but just being a good Christian influence on coworkers, bosses, people around you. Seeing somebody who is diligent and conscientious about their work reflects very well on them and on, the God that they claim to serve. So keep that in mind, that other people are watching. Here we go. The hand of the diligent will rule, but the slack hand will be put to forced labor. This is obviously a diametric opposite to really emphasize the point. You can go one of two ways: be diligent and rise to the top, or be slack and end up at the bottom. Proverbs 10, like vinegar to the teeth and smoke to the eyes, so is the lazy one to those who send him. What does that image mean? What does vinegar to the teeth and smoke to the eyes do? They irritate. Julia made the sign of the fingernails on the chalkboard. Yes. To give somebody a task, and they don't do it. But again, you talk to some of the business owners in this congregation, and finding good help is one of the hardest things that they have to do. So don't be that person. Proverbs 18:9, he who is slack in his work is brother to him who destroys. So it's not just doing nothing, but it actually ends up tearing down the efforts of others around you. Proverbs 17:2, a servant who acts wisely will rule over a son who acts shamefully, and will share in the inheritance among brothers. There have been a few rare instances of that sort of thing, where a servant was actually given the inheritance of running the household, and the children who wanted nothing to do with it were passed over. So work hard and do the best that you can, and people will notice, and people will reward that. Proverbs 22, do you see a man skilled in his work? He will stand before kings. He will not stand before obscure men. And then finally, he who tends the fig tree will eat its fruit, and he who cares for his master will be honored. Let's look at one more proverb, and then we'll stop for a second. This one I did not write down. It's Proverbs 14 and verse 4. Proverbs 14 and verse 4. Where no oxen are, the manger is clean, but much revenue comes by the strength of the ox. All right, this is one of those proverbs that we have to think about a little bit and sort of bring it out of its agrarian context and bring it up to modern day. What does that mean? Or can you put it in more modern terms? Preparation, that's very good. I think that's very close. That's going the right way. Jay? Perhaps, although that's usually used in a political context that we don't like, but that's pretty good. That's going the right direction. So for the ancient farmer, what if you've got no oxen in your stalls, what does that mean you don't have to do? Clean them. You don't have to shovel a lot of manure, feed them, take them out, blah, 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 blah. But on the other, so you're spared that responsibility. But if you've got them, what do you have? The return on that labor of caring for the oxen is far greater because of the work that the oxen is able to do, so that it becomes a very, very good investment of your time, your energy, your money, for the return that you get. So, that too, don't let your oxen die in the stall, that's for sure. Good, that's true. It's good. Let me give you some modern examples. So you may have an entry-level position, and you have your eyeball set on middle management. What might be necessary in order to get up that promotion to that next step? More education. Man, getting a degree is a pain. It's hard. It takes classes. Or if not a degree, certification. You know, to go to school to become Microsoft certified or EMS certified, or, you know, whatever it is, it can be any number of things. It takes schooling, apprenticeship, a test, a certification, a degree, whatever it is, in order to jump up to the next level. Ah, but I don't want to put in the effort. But if you don't put in the effort, guess what you never get to do? Move up out of that entry-level position. That's kind of a modern way of looking at this proverb. Yes, when you don't have oxen, you don't have to clean the stalls. I get that. But you don't get the benefit of the work of the oxen. And if you don't make the most of what you've got, then sure, you don't have to take classes and you don't have to do homework late at night, but you'll never get up to the next level where you want to go. So in other words, it's worth putting in the little extra effort early for the greater payoff down the road. Does that make sense? Good. Absolutely. Very good. Jim was another example that I was thinking of. You all know, this is no secret, right, that Jim is fixing up cars and selling them. Hey, if you need a good used car, go see Jim. And Jim has got his eyes on a welding machine. Now, he doesn't have one, so he doesn't have to fool with it right now, and he doesn't have to have the expense. But guess what Jim could accomplish if he had his welding machine? Well, I don't know how much. Actually, this could be a really bad illustration because Jim could use it once and never use it again. I don't know. But all the work that can be accomplished with obtaining the welding machine becomes a good investment and a good payoff. So it can be education, it can be tools, it can be livestock, it can be property, it can be all kinds of things that allow you to excel at whatever you want to do. It's worth the effort, is what this proverb teaches. Make sense? Did I overdo it? All right, good. Good. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Brian.
I know this is talking to us, but we gotta teach this to our children and instill in them work habits and good study habits and that thing as things as they're young. One problem with that though is the government's working against you when you bring your kids to, they won't let them have jobs at certain days
Right.
and do all this stuff where they need to learn how to do things rather than sit around playing video games
Right.
and whatever else they do.
Yep.
Because and then that's what they learn. I've had them come into my shop at 18, 19 years old, can't even sweep the floor. I mean, literally can't even sweep the floor. You know, push the broom like this, show them, and they still don't do it.
Wow.
But I mean, it's just that bad.
Yep. Business owner. He knows of what he speaks. Anybody else? Yeah, Charlie.
Brian's point about the foreign athletes,
Mm-hmm.
we have a problem here with coaches who will find a little boy and his parents have money, and he'll tell that little boy, you're going straight to the big leagues. And the little boy will walk over the top of your shoes because he's a star.
Hmm.
And he's only 12 years old. He steps all over you. He looks down like he thinks you're going to ask for his autograph. You know what future he's
Man, Charlie, what sports team were you on?
it's a baseball.
Oh, okay. I got you.
He thought he was Mickey Mantle cooler than
All right, two more sections. Integrity in the workplace. In the pursuit of wealth and advancement, many will set aside their integrity. There is never a reason to lie, cheat, or steal. It will not pay off in the end, whether you're talking about school, work, or anything else you set your hand to do. Proverbs 10:2, ill-gotten gains do not profit, but righteousness delivers from death. Proverbs 13:11, wealth gained by fraud dwindles, but the one who gathers by labor increases it. Again, let's remind ourselves, these are general principles, right? Have you ever met anybody who got ahead and never in this life paid for it, got ahead by cheating? Of course, we've all met a few. But in general, what usually happens? Crime doesn't pay. It catches up somewhere along the line. You spend your whole life looking over your shoulder, and if you had just done it the right way, you wouldn't have all that guilt and all that concern, and the feds would have never caught up. Bread obtained by falsehood is sweet to a man. Boy, it sure does feel good to swindle somebody. But afterward, his mouth will be filled with gravel. So there will be a payday. There will be a payday. And finally, Proverbs 16:11, a just balance and scales belong to the Lord. All the weights of the bag are his concern. This to me is a fascinating proverb. Another one of those that we have to move up from an old society to our society. What is the context of that proverb? It's an ancient...
It's talking about people that cheat on you can adjust, if you're a merchant, so you can adjust the scale.
Yes.
And make money.
It's an ancient marketplace. So they didn't have the deli scales like they do at Publix. They would have a balance. And if you wanted to purchase, let's say, a pound of what? Dates. Pound of dates. Then the merchant would take the rock out of his bag that says 1 pound on the rock and put it on this side of the balance. And then he'd pour dates on the other side of the balance until they balanced out. Well, if he wanted to increase his profits by 10% without doing any additional work, what could he do if he were a cheat? Make the weight lighter. Make the weight 10% lighter. It still says a pound. It looks like a pound. You're not going to question the guy, so he puts his pound weight up there, but he's actually only giving you 0.9 of a pound. And all day long this happens, and he's just padded his profit by 10%, and you don't really notice the difference. What does this proverb teach us? What's in the heart of the man who does that? Greed, yes, but also there's another rationalization that takes place, which is just a little, nobody will notice. It's just a little cheating, I'm not as bad as this guy over here. It's not like I stole anything. We always rationalize these little fudging of the numbers here, there. And this proverb says, all the weights of the bag are his concern. So it's true that the customer may never notice that you drilled out the bottom of your 1 pound weight. But who did notice? God noticed. And your relationship with God is threatened by that. Just balance and scales belong to the Lord. All the weights of the bag are his concern. What a fascinating little proverb. All right, and then at the end here we have some long-term goals. The plans of the diligent lead surely to advantage, but everyone who is hasty comes surely to poverty. We say a lot, as we should, about living for today. What does Jesus say? Take care of today, tomorrow will take care of itself. Each day has its enough concern. Put the Lord first and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. In fact, we have this great passage in James chapter 4 that talks about, actually within the context of business. Look at James 4, and I thought that I knew exactly where it was. Where is the vapor passage? I thought it was verse 14. Oh, it's because I'm looking in 1 Peter. I'm sorry. Yeah, it is James 4 and verse 14. That's why I couldn't see it. Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to such and such a city and spend a year there and engage in business and make a profit. Yet you do not know what your life will be like tomorrow. You are just a vapor that appears for a little while and then vanishes away. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or do that. Okay, so we have in our mind a real principle that God is the one in control of our lives, and we might not be upon this earth tomorrow because God, really? Yeah, I can ignore that one? All right, thank you. That's one. God may demand our souls of us this very night, like the farmer in Luke chapter 12. And if so, so much the better. But don't let that make us think that we should never plan, because there's so much in life that comes only as a result of planning. Will you ever save money unless you plan? No. Will you ever get through a single week of school without a plan? No. I am terrible about plans because on Sunday night I always write out my calendar for the week, and then every morning I have to write out what I'm going to do during that day. Does that mean that I am violating what God says in James 4:14? No. It means I'm making a plan, and if the Lord wills, I will follow that plan. Plans are necessary. The plans of the diligent lead to advantage. So make some plans. I love asking the teens and the young adults, where do you expect to be? Where do you see yourself a month from now, a year from now, and 5 years from now? And it's fascinating sometimes to hear the responses to that question. You got to think about, what the future holds in order to begin to plan. Otherwise, those are just dreams, and they never come to pass. All right, last three. All plans must include the Lord and defer to his will. Commit your works to the Lord, and your plans will be established. The Lord has made everything for its own purpose, even the wicked for the day of evil. Proverbs 16:9, the mind of man plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. And then Proverbs 27:1, do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring forth. So again, some good balance to keep in mind there. All right, any comments or questions? Okay, so for the next couple of weeks, we're going to do 2 lessons at a time. So I think probably next week, I don't know, I really honestly haven't decided. We'll probably do 9 and 12, I think, is what we'll do next week. We'll see. Anyway, prepare for lesson number 9. All right, so sorry, a little different tonight. I hope that was still beneficial to you, and that those proverbs on work are good, and they're things that you can share with others. Any last comments or questions? All right.
Feels like I should have some flags or something. Let's be getting to our seats, please. The first song is 496. You don't have to turn there unless you want to. Okay, let's all sing. Will your anchor hold in the storms of life when the clouds unfold their wings of strife? When the strong tides lift and the cables strain, will your anchor drift or firm remain? We have an anchor that keeps the soul steadfast and sure while the billows roll. Fastened to the rock which cannot move, grounded firm and deep in the Savior's love. It is safely moored, 'twill the storm withstand, for 'tis well secured by the Savior's hand. And the cables passed from his heart to mine can defy the blast through strength divine. We have an anchor that keeps the soul steadfast and sure while the billows roll. Fastened to the rock which cannot move, grounded firm and deep in the Savior's love. When our eyes behold through the gathering night the city of gold, our harbor bright, we shall anchor fast by the heavenly shore, with the storms all past forevermore. We have an anchor that keeps the soul steadfast and sure while the billows roll. Fastened to the rock which cannot move, grounded firm and deep in the Savior's love.
Passage out of Luke chapter 12. I'm all out of sorts because I can't remember what I did with my family report, which is what I need for announcements. But anyway, we'll deal with that in a moment. Let's talk about our invitation first. In Luke chapter 12, there is a wonderful story about Jesus teaching a principle about what life really is. And it kind of goes along with what we talked about in our auditorium class tonight, about the difference between making plans and honoring God and working hard. And so if you look there in Luke chapter 12, and starting in verse 15, Jesus said to them, "Beware and be on your guard against every form of greed, for not even when one has an abundance does his life consist of his possessions." And he told them a parable, saying, "The land of a rich man was very productive. And he began reasoning to himself, saying, 'What shall I do since I have no place to store my crops?' He said, 'This is what I will do. I will tear down my barns and build larger ones. And there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, Soul, you have many goods laid up for many years to come. I want to suggest something. I know I stopped, but up until this point, there's really nothing wrong with what the farmer has done. In a farming society, prosperity is gained through a combination of hard work and God's blessing. This farmer got up in the morning, as the Proverbs told him to do. He planted his fields, he weeded his crops, he watered, he fertilized, he did what he had to do in order to provide for himself and for his family. And God sent the rain, and God sent the increase, and he had a productive year. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. And when he had a productive year, he suddenly had a whole bunch of grain that he needed to store, and so he built some barns so that he could store that grain and that hay and be able to keep it until it was time to take it to market. Nothing wrong with that. That's just decent business practice is all that is. The problem enters the scene right there at the end of verse 19, where he says, Take your ease, eat, drink, and be merry. It was his attitude toward these things. It was the patting himself on the back. It was his thought that he had provided all these things for himself and that he could do wrong and never have to answer for it. Verse 20, God said to him, You fool, this very night your soul is required of you, and now who will own what you have prepared? So is the man who stores up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. Spiritual blessings are far and away more important than anything else that we might experience upon this earth. God certainly wants us, as we study tonight in the auditorium class, to work hard, to provide for our families, to have an abundance even to share with others around us who might have need. Those are all good principles. But to never take our sight off the goal, which is that Christ is coming soon, and that eternity is forever. And if we don't have the salvation of our souls, then we could have the whole world. We could have every plot of ground on the planet. We could have every dollar bill ever printed and have absolutely nothing. The soul is worth that much more. The salvation of ourselves and the salvation of those that we know. Tonight you have an opportunity, as Charlie sings our invitation song, leads us in that song, to confess the name of Jesus, to realize that without Christ, we are impoverished. We are needy indeed, that we need salvation. And he will provide it as a free gift, for he did that thing which we could not do for ourselves. He provided redemption through his blood. And through faith in Jesus and his blood, we have justification. If we can help you in that tonight, won't you come as we stand and sing this song? right, we're going to have a closing prayer in just a moment. Who's got that prayer? Do we know ahead of time? Don't think it's Hannah, but maybe it is. I don't know. It's Philip. Oh, we were close. It's Philip. All right. Please keep in your prayers all those who are on our family report. There are many who are there a week in, week out, especially Tammy and Jimmy and Helen and Bernice and Brian. Please pray for those folks. Some things that are coming up here soon. On the 28th, I believe that we're going to do a work day. Is that still correct? 28th. Do we have a time you'd like to start?
8:30.
8:30 a.m. We're going to do a work day, I believe inside and outside, and we'll get more information to you about that, and I will put it in the family report as well. Please be praying for Paula's niece's husband and their family. He had advanced colon cancer, we announced a few weeks ago. He was only in his 40s, and Jeff Gilbert, he passed away this week, so pray for comfort for the family. A lot of our own folks not feeling good tonight. I'm not saying it's the coronavirus, but there's flu going around and there's other little sniffles going around, so keep yourself healthy. I saw a news article today that 70% of Americans are going to get it, so, just get ready for it. But anyway, I won't get into that right now. Please be praying also for Tom Kinney. He had a spot of skin cancer removed today. It was pretty big. He had 20 stitches to sew up the hole, but they do believe they got clear margins and that he should be fine. But Sheila's brother, on the other hand, has a large patch of skin cancer that still needs to be looked at. They're not sure what type it is, but they think that it's pretty serious. So he's headed off to an oncologist here very soon. So pray for good things for him. Okay, I think that's everything that I had, unless I failed to write something down.
Just wanted to mention Susan's home with the flu as well.
Oh, thank you. Susan Rexroad is home with the flu.
So a lot of us know Doris Wilson from Oak City. She passed away this week, and her funeral will be Saturday. And Oak Ridge out on Avondale, starting at 10 o'clock.
I'll try to get that emailed out to you. Thank you. Anybody else? All right, great to see you all tonight. Hope your classes were great. Kids, it's great to see you. Teachers, great to have all the hard work that you do. I'm still looking for just 1 or 2 teachers for the April quarter for our young kids, so I'll be emailing you again about that. All right, Philip, our closing prayer if there are no other prayer requests.
Let us pray. Father in heaven, we come to thee now at the close of this service, thanking you for the opportunity we have to study another portion of thy word. We ask that you be with each one of us as we go out into the community, that we're a positive influence and we spread your word. We ask that you be with those that have been mentioned that need restored, if you would be with them and restore them to their normal degree of health. And please forgive us for our sins and go with us through life. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.